A passport is a travel document, usually issued by the government of a nation, that certifies the identity and nationality of its holder for the purpose of international travel. Standard passports contain the holder's name, place and date of birth, photograph, signature, and other identifying information. Passports are moving towards including biometric information embedded in a microchip embedded in the document, making them machine-readable and difficult to counterfeit. A passport specifies nationality, but not necessarily the place of residence of the passport holder. A passport holder is normally entitled to enter the country that issued the passport, though some people entitled to a passport may not be full citizens with right of abode. A passport is a document certifying identity and nationality. Having the document does not of itself grant any rights, such as protection by the consulate of the issuing country, although it may indicate that the holder has such rights. Some passports attest to status as a diplomat or other official, entitled to rights and privileges such as immunity from arrest or prosecution, arising from international treaties. Many countries normally allow entry to holders of passports of other countries, sometimes requiring a visa also to be held, but this is not an automatic right. Many other additional conditions, such as not being likely to become a public charge for financial or other reasons, and the holder not having been convicted of a crime, may be applicable. Where a country does not recognize another, or is in dispute with it, entry may be prohibited to holders of passports of the other party to the dispute, and sometimes to others who have, for example, visited the other country. Some countries and international organizations issue travel documents which are not standard passports, but enable the holder to travel internationally to countries that recognize the documents. For example, stateless persons are not normally issued a national passport, but may be able to obtain a refugee travel document or the earlier Northern passport, which enables them to travel to countries which recognize them, and sometimes to return to the issuing country. A country may issue a passport to any person, including non-nationals. A passport is often accepted, in its country of issue and elsewhere, as reliable proof of identity, unrelated to travel. History. One of the earliest known references to paperwork that served in a role similar to that of a passport is found in the Hebrew Bible. Nehemiah 2:7-9, dating from approximately 450 BC, states that Nehemiah, an official serving King Artaxerxes I of Persia, asked permission to travel to Judea. The king granted leave and gave him a letter to the governors beyond the river requesting safe passage for him as he traveled through their lands. In the medieval Islamic Caliphate, a form of passport was the beret, a receipt for taxes paid. Only citizens who paid their zakah or jizya taxes were permitted to travel to different regions of the Caliphate, thus the beret receipt was a traveler's basic passport. Etymological sources show that the term passport is from a medieval document that was required to pass through the gate of a city wall or to pass through a territory. In medieval Europe, such documents were issued to travelers by local authorities, and generally contained a list of towns and cities the document holder was permitted to enter or pass through. On the whole, documents were not required for travel to seaports, which were considered open trading points, but documents were required to travel inland from seaports. King Henry V of England is credited with having invented what some consider the first true passport, as a means of helping his subjects prove who they were in foreign lands. The earliest reference to these documents is found in a 1414 Act of Parliament. In 1540, granting travel documents in England became a role of the Privy Council of England, and it was around this time that the term passport was used. In 1794, issuing British passports became the job of the Office of the Secretary of State. A rapid expansion of rail travel and wealth in Europe beginning in the mid-19th century led to a unique dilution of the passport system for approximately 30 years prior to World War I. The speed of trains, as well as the number of passengers that crossed multiple borders, made enforcement of passport laws difficult. The general reaction was the relaxation of passport requirements. In the later part of the 19th century and up to World War I, passports were not required, on the whole, for travel within Europe, and crossing a border was a relatively straightforward procedure. Consequently, comparatively few people held passports. During World War I, European governments introduced border passport requirements for security reasons, and to control the immigration of citizens with useful skills. These controls remained in place after the war, becoming standard, though controversial, procedure. British tourists of the 1920s complained, especially about attached photographs and physical descriptions, which they considered led to a nasty dehumanization. In 1920, the League of Nations held a conference on passports, the Paris Conference on Passports and Customs Formalities and Through Tickets. Passport guidelines and a general booklet design resulted from the conference, which was followed up by conferences in 1926 and 1927. While the United Nations held a travel conference in 1963, no passport guidelines resulted from it. Passport standardization came about in 1980, under the auspices of the International Civil Aviation Organization. ICAO standards include those for machine-readable passports. Such passports have an area where some of the information otherwise written in textual form is written as strings of alphanumeric characters, printed in a manner suitable for optical character recognition. This enables border controllers and other law enforcement agents to process these passports more quickly, without having to input the information manually into a computer. ICAO publishes Doc 9303 machine-readable travel documents, the technical standard for machine-readable passports. A more recent standard is for biometric passports. These contain biometrics to authenticate the identity of travelers. The passport's critical information is stored on a tiny RFID computer chip, much like information stored on smart cards. Like some smart cards, the passport book design calls for an embedded contactless chip that is able to hold digital signature data to ensure the integrity of the passport and the biometric data. Issuance. Historically, legal authority to issue passports is founded on the exercise of each national unregistered trademark's executive discretion. Certain legal tenets follow, namely, first, passports are issued in the name of the state. Second, no person has a legal right to be issued a passport. Third, each national unregistered trademark's government, in exercising its executive discretion, has complete and unfettered discretion to refuse to issue or to revoke a passport. And fourth, that the latter discretion is not subject to judicial review. However, legal scholars like A.J. Arkelian have argued that evolutions in both the constitutional law of democratic nations and the international law applicable to all nations now render those historical tenets both obsolete and unlawful. Under some circumstances, some countries allow people to hold more than one passport document. The UK is one example. This applies usually to people who travel a lot on business, and may need to have, say, a passport to travel on while another is awaiting a visa for another country. Reasons and supporting documentation must be provided to apply for a second UK document. National conditions on issuance. Many countries issue only one passport to each national. When passport holders apply for a new passport, they may be required to surrender the old passport for invalidation. In some circumstances, an expired passport is not required to be surrendered or invalidated. Under the law of most countries, passports are government property, and may be limited or revoked at any time, usually on specified grounds, and possibly subject to judicial review. In many countries, surrender of the passport is a condition of granting bail in lieu of imprisonment for a pending criminal trial. Each country sets its own conditions for the issue of passports. For example, Pakistan requires applicants to be interviewed before a Pakistani passport will be granted. Some countries limit the issuance of passports, where incoming and outgoing international travels are highly regulated, such as North Korea, where general-use passports are the privilege of a very small number of people trusted by the government. Other countries put requirements on their citizens in order to be granted passports, such as Finland, where male citizens aged 18 to 30 years must prove that they have completed, or are exempt from, obligatory military service to be granted an unrestricted passport. Otherwise, a passport is issued valid only until the end of their 28th year, to ensure that they return to carry out military service. Other countries with obligatory military service, such as Syria, have similar requirements. National status. Passports contain a statement of the nationality of the holder. In most countries, one class of nationality exists for every citizen, and only one type of ordinary passport exists for them. However, several types of exceptions exist: multiple classes of nationality in a single country. A country, such as the United Kingdom, has a number of classes of United Kingdom nationality due to its colonial history. As a result, the United Kingdom issues various passports which are similar in appearance but are representative of different statuses, which in turn has caused foreign governments to subject holders of different UK passports to different entry requirements. One class of nationality in multiple countries. A single class can also exist across more than one country. For example, a single class of nationality is available for the 3 constituent countries of Denmark, all 4 constituent countries of the Netherlands, and all the constituent states and territories of the New Zealand. Special nationality class through investment. In rare instances a nationality is available through investment. Some investors have been described in Tongan passports as a Tongan protected person, a status which does not necessarily carry with it the right of abode in Tonga. Multiple types of passports. 1 nationality. The People's Republic of China authorizes its special administrative regions to issue passports to their permanent residents with Chinese nationality under the one country, two systems arrangement. Visa policies imposed by foreign authorities on Hong Kong and Macau permanent residents holding such passports are different from those holding ordinary passports of the People's Republic of China. Passports without sovereign territory. Several entities without a sovereign territory issue documents described as passports, most notably Iroquois League, the Aboriginal Provisional Government in Australia and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Such documents are not necessarily accepted for entry into a country. Validity. Many countries require passport validity of no less than 6 months on arrival, as well as having at least 1 or 2 blank pages. These countries include Afghanistan, Algeria, Bhutan, Botswana, Brunei, Cambodia, Comoros, Antigua, Ecuador, Egypt, El Salvador, Fiji, Guyana, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Kenya, Laos, Madagascar, Malaysia, Marshall Islands, Myanmar, Namibia, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Oman, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, Rwanda, St. Lucia, Samoa, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Solomon Islands, Sri Lanka, Suriname, Taiwan, Tanzania, Timor-Leste, Tonga, Turkey, Tuvalu, Uganda, Vanuatu, Venezuela, and Vietnam. Countries requiring passport validity of at least 4 months on arrival include Micronesia and Zambia. Countries requiring passport validity of at least 3 months on arrival include European Union countries, Georgia, Honduras, Iceland, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Liechtenstein, Moldova, Nauru, New Zealand, Panama, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates. Countries requiring passport validity of at least 1 month on arrival include Eritrea, Hong Kong, Macau, and South Africa. Other countries require either a passport valid on arrival or passport valid throughout the period of intended stay. Types. A rough standardization exists in types of passports throughout the world, although passport types, number of pages and definitions can vary by country. Full passports. Passport are the most common form of passport, issued to citizens and other nationals. Occasionally, children are registered within the parent's passport, making it equivalent to a family passport. Official passport are issued to government employees for work-related travel, and their accompanying dependents. Diplomatic passport are issued to diplomats of a country and their accompanying dependents for official international travel and residence. Accredited diplomats of certain grades may be granted diplomatic immunity by a host country, but this is not automatically conferred by holding a diplomatic passport. Any diplomatic privileges apply in the country to which the diplomat is accredited. Elsewhere, diplomatic passport holders must adhere to the same regulations and travel procedures as are required of other nationals of their country. Emergency passport issued to persons whose passports were lost or stolen, without time to obtain a replacement. Laissez-passer are also used for this purpose. Collective passport issued to define groups for travel together to particular destinations, such as a group of schoolchildren on a school trip. Family passport issued to an entire family. There is one passport holder, who may travel alone or with other family members included in the passport. A family member who is not the passport holder cannot use the passport for travel without the passport holder. Other types of travel documents. Laissez-passer are issued by national governments or international organizations as emergency passports, travel on humanitarian grounds, or for official travel. Certificate of identity are issued under certain circumstances, such as statelessness, to non-citizen residents. An example is the Nansen passport. Sometimes issued as internal passport to non-residents. Refugee travel document issued to a refugee by the state in which she or he currently resides, allowing them to travel outside that state and to return. Made necessary because refugees are unlikely to be able to obtain passports from their state of nationality. Permits. Many types of this exist around the world. Some, like the U.S. re-entry permit, and Japan re-entry permit allow residents of those countries who are unable to obtain a permit to travel outside the country and return. Others, like the Bangladesh special passport, the two-way permit, and the Thai Baseng, are used for travel to and from specific countries or locations, for example to travel between mainland China and Macau, or between Taiwan and the People's Republic of China. Chinese travel document issued by the People's Republic of China to Chinese citizens in lieu of a passport. Hajj passport a special passport used only for a Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. Intra-sovereign territory travel that requires passports. For some countries, passports are required for some types of travel between their sovereign territories. Two examples of this are Hong Kong and Macau, both Chinese special administrative regions, have their own immigration control systems different from each other and mainland China. Traveling between the three is technically not international, so residents of the three locations do not use passports to travel between the three places, instead using other documents, such as the mainland travel permit. Foreigners are required to present their passports with applicable visas at the immigration control points. Malaysia, where an arrangement was agreed upon during the formation of the country, the East Malaysian states of Sabah and Sarawak were allowed to retain their respective immigration control systems. Therefore, a passport is required for foreigners when travelling from Peninsular Malaysia to East Malaysia, as well as travelling between Sabah and Sarawak. For social business visits not more than 3 months, Peninsular Malaysians are required to produce a Malaysian identity card or, for children below 12 years, a birth certificate, and obtain a special immigration printout form to be kept until departure. However, one may present a Malaysian passport or a restricted travel document and get an entry stamp on the travel document to avoid the hassle of keeping an extra sheet of paper. For other purposes, Peninsular Malaysians are required to have a passport and a long-term residence permit. Internal passports are issued by some countries as an identity document. An example is the internal passport of Russia or certain other post-Soviet countries dating back to imperial times. Some countries use internal passports for controlling migration within a country. Designs and format. International Civil Aviation Organization standards. The International Civil Aviation Organization issues passport standards which are treated as recommendations to national governments. The size of passports normally comply with ISO IEC 7810 ID3 standard, which specifies a size of 125 88 This size is the B7 format. Standard passport format includes the cover, which contains the name of the issuing country, a national symbol, a description of the document, and a biometric passport symbol, if applicable. Inside, there is a title page, also naming the country. A data page follows, containing information about the bearer and the issuing authority. There are blank pages for visas, and to stamp for entries and exit. Passports have numerical or alphanumerical designators assigned by the issuing authority. Machine-readable passport standards have been issued by the ICAO, with an area set aside where most of the information written as text is also printed in a manner suitable for optical character recognition. Biometric passports have an embedded contactless smart cards, in order to conform to ICAO standards. The cards contain data about the passport holder, a photograph in digital format, and data about the passport itself. Many countries now issue biometric passports, in order to speed up clearance through immigrations and the prevention of identity fraud. These reasons are disputed by privacy advocates. Common designs. Passports from almost all countries around the world display the respective national coat of arms of the issuing country on the front cover. For the sake of this, the United Nations keep a record of national coats of arms. There are several groups of countries, who through mutual agreement, have adopted common designs for the passports of their respective countries, the European Union. The design and layout of passports of the member states of the European Union are a result of consensus and recommendation, rather than of directive. Passports are issued by member states. The covers of ordinary passports are burgundy red, with European Union written in the national language or languages. Below that are the name of the country, the national coat of arms, the word or words for passport, and, at the bottom, the symbol for a biometric passport. The data page can be at the front or at the back of a passport, and there are small design differences to indicate which member state is the issuer. In 2006, the members of the CA4 Treaty adopted a common design passport, called the Central American Passport, following a design already in use by Nicaragua and El Salvador since the mid-1990s. It features a navy blue cover with the words ARMA copyright Rica Central, and a map of Central America, and with a territory of the issuing country highlighted in gold. At the bottom of the cover are the name of the issuing country and the passport type. The members of the Andean Community of Nations began to issue commonly designed passports in 2005. Specifications for the common passport format were outlined in an Andean Council of Foreign Ministers meeting in 2002. Previously issued national passports will be valid until their expiry dates. Andean passports are Bordeaux, with words in gold. Centered above the national seal of the issuing country is the name of the regional body in Spanish. Below the seal is the official name of the member country. At the bottom of the cover is the Spanish word pasaporte along with the English passport. Venezuela had issued Andean passports, but has subsequently left the Andean community, so they will no longer issue Andean passports. The Union of South American Nations signaled an intention to establish a common passport design, but it appears that implementation will take many years. The member states of the Caribbean community recently began issuing passports with a common design. It features the CARICOM symbol along with the national coat of arms and name of the member state, rendered in CARICOM official language. The member states which use the common design are Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. There was a movement by the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to issue a common design passport, but the implementation of the CARICOM passport made that redundant, and it was abandoned. The request page. Passports often, though not always, contain a message, usually near the front, requesting that the passport's bearer be allowed to pass freely, and further requesting that, in the event of need, the bearer be granted assistance. The message is sometimes made in the name of the government or the head of state, and may be written in more than one language, depending on the language policies of the issuing authority. The following are some examples. The Australian passport says, "The Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, being the representative in Australia of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, requests all those whom it may concern to allow the bearer, an Australian citizen, to pass freely without let or hindrance and to affords him or her every assistance and protection of which he or she may stand in need." The Canadian passport has, "The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada requests, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, all those whom it may concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. The Dutch passport message is, in the name of His Majesty the King of the Netherlands, Prince of Orange-Nassau, etc. 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 The Minister of Foreign Affairs requests all authorities of friendly powers to allow the bearer of the present passport to pass freely without let or hindrance and to afford the bearer every assistance and protection which may be necessary. The Israeli passport has, the Minister of the Interior of the State of Israel hereby requests all those whom it may concern to allow the carrier of this passport to pass freely without let or hindrance, and to afford him such assistance and protection as may be necessary. The Philippine passport reads, the government of the Republic of the Philippines requests all concerned authorities to permit the bearer, a citizen of the Philippines, to pass safely and freely and in case of need to give him/her all lawful aid and protection. The Polish passport reads, the authorities of the Republic of Poland hereby kindly requests all whom it may concern to provide the bearer of this passport with all assistance that may be deemed necessary while abroad. The South Korean passport states, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade of the Republic of Korea hereby requests all those whom it may concern to permit the bearer, a national of the Republic of Korea, to pass freely without delay or hindrance and, in case of need, to afford him/her every possible assistance and protection. The Sri Lankan passport states, the President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka requests and requires all those whom it may concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. The United Kingdom passport reads, Her Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires in the name of Her Majesty all those whom it may concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance, and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. The United States passport states, the Secretary of State of the United States of America hereby requests all whom it may concern to permit the citizen national of the United States named herein to pass without delay or hindrance and in case of need to give all lawful aid and protection. Other passports bear similar messages. There are countries, such as Switzerland, Finland and Austria, where such messages are absent. Languages. In 1920, an international conference on passports and through tickets held by the League of Nations recommended that passports be issued in French, historically the language of diplomacy, and one other language. Currently, the ICAO recommends that passports be issued in English and French, or in the national language of the issuing country and in either English or French. Many European countries use their national language and the three most spoken languages in Europe, that is French, German, and English. Some unusual language combinations are, passports of European Union states bear all of the official languages of the EU. 2 or 3 languages are printed at the relevant points, followed by reference numbers which point to the passport page where translations into the remaining languages appear. In addition to the official EU languages, British passports bear Welsh and Scots Gaelic. The Barbadian passport and the United States passport are trilingual, English, French and Spanish. United States passports were traditionally English and French, but began being printed with a Spanish message and labels during the late 1990s, in recognition of Puerto Rico's Spanish-speaking status. Only the message and labels are in multiple languages. The cover and instructions pages are printed solely in English. In Belgium, all 3 official languages appear on the cover, in addition to English on the main page. The order of the official languages depends on the official residence of the holder. Cypriot passports are in Greek, Turkish and English. The first page of a Libyan passport is in Arabic only. The last page has an English equivalent of the information on the Arabic first page. Similar arrangements are found in passports of some other Arab countries. Iraqi passports are in Arabic, Kurdish and English. Macau SAR passports are in 3 languages, Chinese, Portuguese and English. New Zealand passports are in English and Maori. Norwegian passports are in the 2 forms of the Norwegian language, Bokmål and Nynorsk, and in English. Pakistani passports are in Urdu, English, Arabic and French. Sri Lankan passports are in Sinhala, Tamil and English. Swiss passports are in 5 languages: German, French, Italian, Romansh and English. Immigration stamps. For immigration control, officials of many countries use entry and exit stamps. Depending on the country, a stamp can serve different purposes. For example, in the United Kingdom, an immigration stamp in a passport includes the formal leave to enter granted to a person subject to entry control. In other countries, a stamp activates or acknowledges the continuing leave conferred in the passport bearer's entry clearance. Under the Schengen system, a foreign passport is stamped with a date stamp which does not indicate any duration of stay. This means that the person is deemed to have permission to remain either for 3 months or for the period shown on his visa. Visas often take the form of an inked stamp, although some countries use adhesive stickers that incorporate security features to discourage forgery. Member states of the European Union are not permitted to place a stamp in the passport of a person who is not subject to immigration control. Stamping is prohibited because it is an imposition of a control that the person is not subject to. Countries usually have different styles of stamps for entries and exits, to make it easier to identify the movements of people. Other ways to easily determine information. In color might be used to designate mode of transportation, such as in Hong Kong prior to 1997. While border styles did the same thing in Macau. Other variations include changing the size of the stamp to indicate length of stay, as in Singapore. Immigration stamps are a useful reminder of travels. Some travelers collect immigration stamps in passports, and will choose to enter or exit countries via different means in order to have different stamps in their passports. Some countries, such as Liechtenstein, that do not stamp passports may provide a passport stamp on request for such memory purposes. However, such memorial stamps can preclude the passport bearer from traveling to certain countries. For example, Finland consistently rejects what they call falsified passports, where travelers have been refused visas or entry due to memorial stamps and are required to renew their passports. Limitations on use. Many countries normally allow entry to holders of passports of other countries, sometimes requiring a visa also to be held, but this is not an automatic right. Many other additional conditions, such as not being likely to become a public charge for financial, health, family, or other reasons, and the holder not having been convicted of a crime or considered likely to commit one, may be applicable. Several controversial cases, such as exclusion in 2007 from the USA of a university professor who had written a research paper about taking the drug LSD in the 1970s, were discussed in the Daily Telegraph newspaper in 2014. Where a country does not recognize another, or is in dispute with it, entry may be prohibited to holders of passports of the other party to the dispute, and sometimes to others who have, for example, visited the other country. Examples are listed below. The country issuing the passport may also restrict its validity, excluding certain countries for political, security or health reasons. Asia. Bangladesh. A Bangladeshi passport is valid for travel to all nations, except Israel. China and Taiwan. Citizens of Taiwan use a special travel permit issued by China's public security authorities to enter China. Citizens of China entering Taiwan must also use a special travel permit issued by the ROC government and have their mainland documents surrendered. The identity documents are only valid for travel between Taiwan and China, and an endorsement must be obtained separately to enable travel. Hong Kong and Macau. A home return permit is required for Chinese citizens domiciled in Hong Kong and Macau to enter and exit mainland China. The Hong Kong Special Administrative Region Passport and the Macau Special Administrative Region Passport cannot be used for travel to mainland China. Also, British national passports cannot be used by Chinese citizens who reside in Hong Kong as the PRC does not recognize dual nationality. Mainland China residents visiting Hong Kong or Macau are required to hold an exit-entry permit for traveling to and from Hong Kong and Macau issued by mainland authorities, along with an endorsement, on the exit-entry permit which needs to be applied each time visiting the SARs. Non-permanent residents of Macau who are not eligible for a passport may travel to Hong Kong on the visit permit to Hong Kong, a restricted passport valid for 7 years which allows holders to travel only to Hong Kong SAR during its validity. Israeli Euro. In Israel's first years, Israeli passports bore the stamp "not valid for Germany," as in the aftermath of the Holocaust it was considered improper for Israelis to visit Germany on any but official state business. Some Muslim and African countries do not permit entry to anyone using an Israeli passport. In addition, Iran, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Syria and Yemen do not allow entry to people with evidence of travel to Israel, or whose passports have either a used or an unused Israeli visa. Malaysian Euro. A Malaysian passport is valid for all countries except Israel. Pakistani Euro. Currently a statement on Pakistani passports reads, "This passport is valid for all countries of the world except Israel. LIU 3/4 terahertz cubed U 3/4 UO plus or minus U to the first O cubed U omega och mo terahertz cubed O plus or minus O terahertz UOO section UOOOMU copyright UOUUL terahertz plus or minus OOUU." Philippines. A Euro. Between 2004 and mid-2011, the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs deemed that bearers of its passports could not travel to Iraq due to the security threats in that country. As such, Philippine passports issued in that time period were stamped "not valid for travel to Iraq" in English and Arabic. Passports printed after July 1, 2011 no longer bear this stamp. South Korea. Euro. The South Korean government has banned Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Syria and Yemen as travel destinations for safety. South Korea does not consider travel within the Korean peninsula to be international travel, as South Korea's constitution claims the entire Korean peninsula as its territory. South Koreans traveling to the Kaesong Industrial Region in North Korea pass through the Gyeonggi Highway Transit Office at Dora-sen, Munsan, where they present a plastic visit certificate card issued by the South Korean Ministry of Unification, and an immigration stamped passage certificate issued by the Kaesong Industrial District Management Committee. Until 2008, South Koreans traveling to tourist areas in the north such as Mount Kumgang needed to carry a South Korean ID card for security reasons. Europe. As a result of the Nagorno-Karabakh war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, Azerbaijan refuses entry to holders of Armenian passports, as well as passport holders of any other country if they are of Armenian descent. It also strictly refuses entry to foreigners in general whose passport shows evidence of entry into the self-proclaimed Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, immediately declaring them permanent persona non grata. Conversely, Armenia does allow visa-free entry for holders of Azerbaijani passports. The Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus issues passports, but only Turkey recognizes its statehood. TRNC passports are not accepted for entry into the Republic of Cyprus via airports or seaports, but are accepted at the designated Green Line crossing points. However, all Turkish Cypriots are entitled by law to the issue of a Republic of Cyprus EU passport, and since the opening of the border between the two sides, Cypriot and EU citizens can travel freely between them. The United Kingdom, United States of America, France, Australia, Pakistan and Syria currently officially accept TRNC passports with the relevant visas. Passports are not needed by citizens of San Marino and Italy to travel to each other's country. EU citizens do not need a passport to enter in San Marino. However, San Marino citizens must possess a regular passport to enter EU states other than Italy. Spain does not accept United Kingdom passports issued in Gibraltar, alleging that the government of Gibraltar is not a competent authority for issuing UK passports. The word Gibraltar now appears beneath the words United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland on the covers of British passports issued in Gibraltar. British passports may be issued to people holding any of the various forms of British nationality, with holders identified as of 2014 as British citizens, British Overseas Territories citizens, British Overseas Citizens, British Subjects, British Protected Persons, and British Nationals. Holders other than British citizens may not have the right to enter or reside in the United Kingdom, and other countries may apply restrictions that do not apply to GBA holders. Oceania. Some countries decline to accept Tongan protected person passports, though they accept Tongan's citizen passports. Tongan protected person passports are sold by the government of Tonga to anyone who is not a Tongan national. A holder of a Tongan protected person passport is forbidden to enter or settle in Tonga. Generally, those holders are refugees or stateless persons for some other reason. South America. For countries that do not maintain diplomatic relations with Brazil, such as Kosovo and Taiwan, diplomatic, official and work passports are not accepted, and visas are only granted to tourist or business visitors. Under Brazilian €1 or less is pass or €1. International travel without passports. International travel is possible without passports in some circumstances. Nonetheless, a document stating citizenship, such as a national identity card or an enhanced driver's license, is usually required. Africa. Members of the East African Community may issue an East African passport. East African passports are recognized by only the 5 members, and are only used for travel between or among those countries. The requirements for eligibility are less rigorous than are the requirements for national passports used for other international travel. The member states of the Economic Community of West African States do not require passports for their citizens traveling within the community. National ID cards are sufficient. The member states are Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. Asia. Passports are not needed by citizens of India, Nepal, and Bhutan to travel to each other's country, but some identification is required for border crossings. Additionally, only Indians can travel in Bhutan without a passport, while Bhutanese must travel with their citizenship identity cards. Syria and Lebanon citizens do not require passports when traveling in either country if they are carrying ID cards. Travel between Russia and some former Soviet republics, designated by membership in the Commonwealth of Independent States, may be accomplished with a national identity document or passport. However, according to a statement made by President Putin in December 2012, Russia has plans to restrict travel without a passport only to citizens of the member states of the Customs Union of Belarus, Kazakhstan and Russia by 2015. After that date, citizens of other CIS states will need passports to visit Russia. Citizens of the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf countries need only national ID cards to cross the borders of Council countries. This also applies to anyone that has a residence permit in any of the GCC countries. The 20 countries of the APEC issue the APEC Business Travel Card, which allows visa-free entry into all participating countries. Europe. Travel with minimal travel documents is possible between the United Kingdom, the Isle of Man, the Channel Islands, and the Republic of Ireland, which together form the Common Travel Area. A citizen of one of the 28 member states of the European Union or of Liechtenstein, Andorra, Monaco, Norway, San Marino, Iceland and Switzerland may travel within these countries using a standard compliant national identity card rather than a passport. Not all EU EEA member states issue standard compliant national identity cards, notably Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Ireland and the United Kingdom. Sweden issues national identity cards, but its passport law does not allow a Swedish citizen to travel outside the Schengen area without a passport, which is in violation of EU freedom of movement. The up to now 26 countries that apply the Schengen Agreement do not implement passport controls between each other, unless exceptional circumstances apply. It is however mandatory to carry a passport, compliant national identity card or alien's resident permit. The Nordic Passport Union allows Nordic citizens or Euro citizens from Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway and Sweden to visit any of these countries without being in possession of identity documents. This is an extension of the principle that Nordic citizens need no identity document in their own country. A means to prove identity when requested is recommended, even in one's own country. Joining the Schengen area in 1997 has not changed these rules. Albania accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from citizens of the European Union, Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, Kosovo, Montenegro, Republic of Macedonia. Bosnia and Herzegovina accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from citizens of the EEA, Andorra, Montenegro, Monaco, San Marino, Serbia and the Vatican City. The Republic of Macedonia accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from citizens of the EEA, Albania, Montenegro and Serbia. Montenegro accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from citizens of the EEA, Albania, Andorra, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Monaco, Republic of Macedonia, San Marino, Serbia and the Vatican City. Serbia accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from citizens of the EEA, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Republic of Macedonia. Citizens of Belgium, France, Georgia, Germany, Greece, Italy, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Malta, the Netherlands, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, Portugal, Spain and Switzerland are allowed to enter Turkey with a valid national ID card. However, Turkish citizens are allowed to enter Georgia with a valid ID card. North America. CARICOM countries issue a CARICOM passport to their citizens, and as of June 2009, eligible nationals in participating countries will be permitted to use the CARICOM travel card, which provides for intra-community travel without a passport. There are several cards available to certain North American citizens residents which allow passport-free travel. Generally only for land and sea border crossings. The U.S. passport card is an alternative to an ordinary U.S. passport booklet for land and sea travel within North America. Like the passport book, the passport card is issued only to U.S. citizens and nationals. The Nexus card allows border crossing between the U.S. and Canada. The Air Nexus card can also be used for air travel as the only means of identification for U.S. and Canadian citizens nationals. The Sentry card allows passport-free entry into the U.S. from Mexico. U.S. nationals may further enter the U.S. using an enhanced driver license issued by the states of Vermont, Washington, Michigan and New York. Enhanced tribal cards. U.S. military ID cards plus military travel orders. U.S. merchant mariner ID cards, when traveling on maritime business. Native American tribal ID cards. Form I-872 American Indian Card. Canadian nationals may enter the U.S. via land or sea using an enhanced WHTI-compliant driver's license. These are currently issued by British Columbia, Manitoba, Quebec and Ontario. If Canadians wish to enter the U.S. via air, they must use a passport book. Canadian status First Nation may enter the U.S. with a valid Certificate of Indian Status card, issued by the Canadian federal government. For travel to the French islands of Saint Pierre and Miquelon directly from Canada, Canadians and foreign nationals holding Canadian identification documents are exempted from passport and visa requirements for stays of maximum duration of 3 months within a period of 6 months. Accepted documents include a driver's license, citizenship card, permanent resident card and others. U.S. nationals traveling through Canada are not exempt and must carry a passport. Oceania. Residents of 9 coastal villages in Papua New Guinea are permitted to enter the protected zone of the Torres Strait for traditional purposes. This exemption from passport control is part of a treaty between Australia and Papua New Guinea negotiated when PNG became independent from Australia in 1975. Vessels from other parts of Papua New Guinea and other countries attempting to cross into Australia or Australian waters are stopped by Australian Customs or the Royal Australian Navy. South America. Many Central American and South American nationals can travel within their respective regional economic zones, such as Mercosur and the Andean Community of Nations, or on a bilateral basis, without passports, presenting instead their national ID cards, or, for short stays, their voter registration cards. In some cases this travel must be done overland rather than by air. There are plans to extend these rights to all of South America under a Union of South American Nations, and it already extends them to every South American country except Guyana and Suriname. See also, List of passports, identity theft, notes and references. Further reading, Advisory and Technical Committee for Communications and Transit. Replies of the governments to the inquiry on the application of the resolutions relating to passports, customs formalities and through tickets. Geneva, League of Nations 1922. OCLCA 46,235,968 Holder 4, Floyd William. An empirical analysis of the state Euro unregistered trademark's monopolization of the legitimate means of movement, evaluating the effects of required passport use on international travel. San Marcos, Texas State University. OCLCA 503,473,693. Docket Applied Research Projects, Paper 308, Lloyd, Martin, 2003. The Passport, The History of Man's Most Traveled Document. Canterbury, Queen Anne's Fan. ISBN A978-0-9547150-3-8. OCLCA 220013999, Salter, Mark B. Rites of Passage, The Passport in International Relations. Boulder, Colorado, Lynn Riona Publishers. ISBN A978-52826-145-8. OCLCA 51518371, Torpey, John C. The Invention of the Passport, Surveillance, Citizenship and the State. Cambridge Studies in Law and Society. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press. ISBN A0-521-63249-8. OCLCA 59408523, United States. Hunt, Gaillard. The American Passport. Its History and a Digest of Laws, Rulings and Regulations governing its issuance by the Department of State. Washington, GOVT. Print. Off. OCLCA 3836079. External links, Prado, the Council of the European Union Public Register of Authentic Travel and ID Documents Online, Types of Passports issued by GOVT. Of India, How Passports Work. US-focused information from How STUV Works, ICAOMRTD. Machine-readable travel documents, Passport Land, detailed images of 500 old passports, investigation into passport fraud, Dateline NBC, December 28, 2007, passport-free travel to begin for citizens of 9 more European countries, Seattle Times, November 8, 2007.